What's good YouTube? RuneXYJo here to share an informative video, a little bit different, just because I realize how much gems I have and just how much I'm balling with gems, and that basically there is a trick to this madness of how to have a lot of gems. So I'd like to call this 7 tips of how to be efficient and use gems efficiently. Now, before we get started with the 7 tips, just a disclaimer, this is just to basically be efficient as a free-to-player deck. We all know the strongest card in the game is the credit card. You can easily just buy gems as you need, but assuming you want to play as free as you can, this should definitely help you with tips and tricks of how to be efficient with your gems and just be able to save up and have a lot of gems in the long run, as long as you are smart with it. So tip number 1, and we're gonna just go up with the obvious: do your solo missions. You just need to do all of them. Honestly, do all the stories because they're free gems. They're basically 200 per story, so you could basically get a few thousand gems just by doing these stories. And let's say they are boring, and yeah, they are, you have to use loners, but honestly, how about a goal for every time you play, just do one story each day, and you should be done with all of them by that time, and you'll have a few thousand gems already at that point and almost be maxed out with it. In addition, you should be doing your training and challenges, so that should definitely help you out, get you a few thousand to get you started, but definitely do solo mode as the obvious. Now, tip number 2, this is another obvious one, is every month, Master Duel typically has an event duel to the right side. Typically, to get here, you just have to click duel, and it'll typically pop up to the right side, just right here. Now, for example, for the month of April of 2025, we had a thing called the Duel Triangle. And with the Duel Triangle, doing this, typically every event will net you about 3,000 gems, and as you can, do your best to do it. Now, as a new player, sometimes it could be hard and you'd have to resort to using loner decks, but if you got the time or the resources to do it, you should definitely always do the events, because those are just free gems instead of just always doing the rank ladder, and that's another 3,000 gems right there that you could be doing every month, especially doing things like the Duelist Cup. That will definitely help give you a lot of gems. So do events. Next obvious tip and last obvious tip is do your duel passes. For April of 2025, there is a new duel pass, and it's honestly worth buying it for only 700 gems. It pays for itself in the long run. Now, typically you can wait, but just save your gems for when you can finally collect everything. Typically you want to purchase it at level 50, and you could continue getting more gems, and you are dust. So doing the dual pass is pretty much free gems as long as you're playing the rank ladder. Now, tip 4 is to invest in non-engine or staple cards. This is because half the deck, assuming you are playing the meta, somewhere between 10 to 20 hand traps or non-engine staples will almost always be used in competitive decks. Now, these are typically, what you're seeing on the screen are hand traps that are almost always used in all competitive decks. Now, that's not to say you have to use these, but it's commonly there. Therefore, if you are playing as a competitive player, playing on ladder, you're probably going to be seeing this or be using this. Using Master Duel Meta, it's a wonderful site. You basically can get a lot of information. It's basically an encyclopedia for Master Duel. You can always go to top decks or top cards here and use usage rate just to see what is typically used. And as you can see, almost everything in the first row you're probably almost always going to be using in competitive decks. Now, granted, with meta changes, it'll always shift. However, it's always a good place to look at these, just because you'll know what is typically a staple card and what you'll be probably using. That's why. Now, going back to it, half of your deck is probably from somewhere between 10 or 20 of these is already going to be in your deck. Therefore, there's only another 20 cards that could probably be your engine. Typically, this is, again, how a deck is built in terms of deck building competitively, quote unquote. But yeah, basically invest in engine because you're always going to be using these cards, and when you have a lot of gems you could just focus on getting engine that are from secret packs, selection packs, and anything of those sorts, but basically your deck is going to probably be used. That's why things like Drolan, things like Maxi, things like Fuvelos, Imperm, and Ash are probably always going to be used in a competitive deck. So that's already 10 cards, up to 12, depending on how much copies you can have or in terms of budget. But as you can, invest in non-engine as tip number 4. And speaking of investing in non-engine staple cards, I strongly recommend buying all the bundle deals whenever you have time, little by little, because not only are you going to definitely be using these cards at one point in your time, you are getting more UR dust with master packs. You're more likely going to get just random UR cards, and you could still dust those to keep leftovers just in case you want to finish off using dust to or crafting points to finish off your deck. But you should never be building a deck with just crafting points. It's super expensive, and unless you're paying, definitely invest in your engine with the bundle deals in the shop. So tip number 5 is invest in a splashable or generic engine. Basically something that you enjoy. I can't speak for others just because Yu-Gi-Oh is really complex like that, but investing in decks that you can make other decks with, for example, Runic. We are Runic's YGO here, and because of that, you could play so many Runic cards if you just have just the engine. Like with Runic cards, that's 17 cards. Typically, this is what you're always gonna play in Runic, and with other staple non-engine cards, you're almost at 40 cards already, which gives you like about 10 more cards left for a 40 card deck, assuming. But to find out how to invest in engine, we're gonna go back to Master Duel meta just to figure out what cards. You can also do it in Master Duel, but it's a lot easier on Master Duel meta, in my opinion, is because you could tell what cards or what packs they were originally in. Now, for the sake of this video, for example, with Hugin, it was obtained through Mysterious Labyrinth, but since this deck or pack is no longer released because this was released in December 7th of 2002, you cannot get this selection pack anymore. It's expired, so now they made a selection pack. They almost do this with all archetypes. So now it is the Adventure of Mystical Etching as an example. So if you end up purchasing a super rare or ultra rare within this selection of cards, you will unlock the secret pack. This is what the secret pack means, and you can open it for 10 packs for 1,000 gems each and try to build the Runic, or at least the engine that you're trying to get within the secret pack. Now granted, secret packs are a little bit later than selection packs, meaning they are a little bit older now. However, you could still play the deck that you want to enjoy, and because of that, you can basically start playing other variants of this deck now. So with the Runic engine, having this, I could play a whole bunch of Runic decks. You could play Runic Bestial, Runic Naturia, Runic Stun, Runic White Forest. There are a load of Runic cards, and that's why I strongly recommend, because you can start venturing out to other decks. Granted, you are in the end gonna be playing the same deck, but that doesn't mean you could still farm gems and end up buying other packages. So for example, another package other than Runic is something like the Kashtira. Typically this is a board breaker for going second, and just to try to bait out your opponent, and it's just 4 cards. It's almost splashable in any deck. It's free XYZ fodder or extra deck fodder to do more combos with. So having generic cards, this can basically go into anything. That's not to mention, for example, Millennium Engine. Another great example. With Fiendsmith is typically what it goes into. And look, this is 11 cards already. 11 plus maybe 15 to 20 hand traps. You're almost at 40 cards, and you only have X amount or less than 5 to 10 engine left. And speaking of that, with the extra deck, so another great example, Millennium can almost be put into anything. It's currently being put into Snake Eyes, White Forest, Bestials. Yeah, it's a very strong engine and very generic, and because of that, it makes deck building a lot easier. Other cards, the Fiendsmith engine, having this 4 cards already in a 15 to 20 card deck, you have like 15 engine left for an archetype. And speaking of the extra deck, this is typically what you're always going to see in Fiendsmith. There is a pattern within engine, that's why, that you'll almost always see and go hand in hand with. Like with engine, with Fiendsmith Snake Eye, Fiendsmith Ubel, Fiendsmith Bestial, Fiendsmith soon in the future. There are loads of decks you can make just with this and hand traps alone, having a deck. There's also, lastly, in my last example, is Bestial. Bestial is very generic too. They're really strong right now because you could banish lights and darks in the graveyard to interrupt your opponent. Very strong and very generic. 8 cards already, so you'll have about only a dozen engine left. So this is why you should always invest in generic engine as well. Tip number 6. This might be a little bit confusing, but always keep 30 UR crafting points or dust. You want to keep this for an emergency, just in case you need to purchase 1 UR that you need to either make the deck, or in other cases, to open a secret pack. Now, you can also open secret packs with opening an SR or super rare as well. However, most of the time, you'll probably need 3 ofs with the ultra rares, and you're probably gonna need that or prioritize trying to get that more than you are with super rares. So typically, using the UR to get what you truly needed or prioritize is more efficient. Now, going back to Master Duel Meta, why I truly recommend Master Duel Meta if you're not using it to help deck build or just get more information to be a better player, is you can actually click in the homepage secret packs. And doing that, you're able to search, if you're gonna search up any cards, so let's just say again Runic for the sake of being a Runic, it shows what secret pack it exists in. Now, going back to Master Duel, let's say for example I wanted to finish off my White Forest Centurion deck, and granted there's a lot of ways to play, but for this example's sake, I need more SRs than I need URs. If I needed 3 copies of Primera, I would probably unlock that. But in terms of being efficient, super rares would probably be better right now. I would unlock this to unlock the secret pack. Now, you could always find the secret pack going back. Let's say I wanted to play Centurion. So Centurion, it would be here. The secret pack, True Awakening of the Oathbound Knight. And it'll tell me all the information of what I would need, and I could research how much URs or how realistically I could purchase something if I wanted to make this deck. So if I opened it, I would generate and I would get a secret pack, and I would start unlocking packs until I could easily make this deck. All I truly need is 1 UR or 2 URs of that pack, so it's very likely I could easily get it, and then I'll have the entire main deck already. Now, the downside of keeping 30 UR points that won't always work is something, for example, like I want to make Ubel Fiendsmith. I'm pretty close to it as well, just like the White Forest Centurion. Just by getting a few SRs and needing a few URs, I could easily make the deck. Unfortunately, there is no secret pack to this, and you just have to be patient. Eventually, a secret pack will be made, hopefully soon with Duel, and I'll be able to play the deck. I just need a few URs, like less than 5, just to play this deck, and I could easily purchase that with 10,000 URs that I have. Now, the last and final tip is to pretend you don't have any gems. This will stop you from buying things and wait till you're maxed out. You don't need cosmetics. The whole point is to play the game, basically. And basically following these tips, you should eventually easily have a lot of gems left over to still buy cosmetics that you need. But yeah, the whole point is just to play the game, and having engine and non-engine is probably the most important. Generic. Take, for example, my favorite deck, Snake Eyes Fiendsmith, the most successful deck I currently have. I would be playing more effect veilers, however, I don't have the space, so I had to play around it. And because of that, I only have one effect veiler due to that. And because of that, that doesn't mean I cannot play the deck. I could still play, it's just you're not playing as consistent as you want to be. Sure, it'll probably not do well in terms of your win rate in the long run, but I'm sure you'll still be racking up points if you're playing a pretty strong engine deck still. So regardless, pretend you don't have any gems, don't spend, and you should be good. That's about it. Those are the 7 tips that I wanted to give in order to be efficient with your gems, and in the long run you should be balling and having just as much gems as I currently have, maxed out 10k with extra here on the side to be able to use before the expiration date. Hopefully a selection pack that I would like to use opens up, and I'll be ready for the next deck I'd like to build. Basically, let me know down in the comments of any other tips that you guys may have as well that could help other people. I hope this video was really helpful for you guys, just because this is my experience of how I learned throughout playing, and I managed to be pretty quote-unquote successful and competitive enough that I'm doing pretty well for myself. Thank you guys so much. See you guys in the next video.